The brand new trailer for Pacific Rim, the new film from Mr. Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro.
The chair breaks. They always put it on the chair. I think I look like a culprit, but no, but I get away with it.
That's incredible.
Thank you. Well, the movie, fortunately, can is like you remember the Douglas Trumbull movie, Brain. What was that? The one with the guy that edits all the orgasms and puts them on his head in a brainstorm. So the movie, if I edited all the money shots in the movie, it would have like a 70-minute orgasm. It's pretty brutal. It's like really a lot of really good stuff, beautiful and crazy, and I'm the happiest living I've ever been.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much again for sharing that with us. I think we're like super excited. I know I am. Well, that's good. I don't want to get in trouble with that. So switching gears a little bit, it's interesting to go from watching Devil's Backbone to Pacific Rim, but I think that's also one of the things that's going to be great to talk about. I don't know if a lot of people realize that The Devil's Backbone is a very personal film for you and one that you spent a great deal of time trying to get made. I understand it was like 16 years or something?
Approximately. It was a movie that I wrote before Kronos. The first version of it was done before Kronos. It was very different. It was in the Mexican Revolution, and it was completely, I mean, the story had similar points, but it was very different. It was, instead of a ghost, there was a Christ with 3 arms. very weird. But it was beautiful. It was a really crazy movie. I gave up on it originally because when I wrote the screenplay, my screenplay teacher, back then there were no computers. The maximum you could do was a word processor that gave you 8 pages at a time. You were like, my God, 8 pages. And I had done the first draft, and my teacher said, the margins are wrong, and toss it in the wastebasket. And I have no copies. And I said, and he said, you write it again. Take your carbon copy and start over. And I did it. He said, fuck that. I'm going to write something else. And I wrote Kronos. I mean, I had been trying to write Kronos for a long time, but it's a very personal movie for me. It's I say Devil's Backbone is my first film because Kronos was very difficult to make, inexperience, lack of money, this and that. And when I did it, I felt it was 60% or 50% of what I wanted it to be. Then Mimic was like being in prison and picking up the soap in the shower. You know, and I came out of that really thinking I didn't know what to make about making movies after Mimic. I didn't feel there could be joy again, and when I did Devil's Backbone, all that joy came back, and all the freedom, and all the artistic liberty, and all that stuff came back. So it's a very, it's my dearest film.
So in that time after Mimic, is that when you revisited the screenplay and it began to take the shape that you see now?
It was curious because I met Almodovar when I was touring with Kronos, and he met me, and he did something that I've been trying to pass on. He met me and he said, "Are you Guillermo del Toro?" I said, "Yes," and it turned out it was Pedro Almodovar. And I was very shocked, and he said, "I love Kronos, I would like to produce your next movie." Like that. And I couldn't believe it, but it saved my life basically after a minute. I said, when I find something appropriate, I'll go to you. And I went to him during the kidnapping of my dad, which was right after Mimic. So it was brutal, Mimic, and then that. And Pedro came in during the kidnapping, he told him what I wanted to do. I pitched him Devil's Wagon the way I wanted to do it, and we went on and did it. It was because I had found a screenplay from which we took the bomb and the Professor Casares character, Federico Lupi's character, and Jacinto, the caretaker. And the rest was refurbishing, recreating, creating new from old stuff. And I acquired this screenplay and wrote the new Devil's Wagon with two Spanish writers and I.
And did you feel that you needed to work in Spain after
Munich? Yeah. In fact, what happened is Blade 2 was ready to go. Blade 2 was ready to go, and I knew I didn't want to go. I said, well, best case scenario, I go to Blade 2, I have a blast. Worst case scenario is Mimic 2.0. So I said, I'm not going to go through that. So I went to Newell and I said, look, I'm going to go to do a little movie in Spain. And they said, no, we need the movie for release so-and-so date. So how much would it cost to buy that movie out? I said, nothing. I don't want to do it before that movie. And I've been always very, very stubborn. And I said, if you really want me for Blade, you'll wait for me. And if you don't want me for Blade, then fuck it was not mine. No, I said, it's your choice. And what they did, they said, we will do it, but you'll need to post Devil's Wagon super fast. And Devil's Wagon we finished, and I don't know if any of you guys have done shorts or features or who, but we were cutting the negative of Devil's Wagon 12 weeks after shoot, which is super fast. And that was it was a mistake because I could not travel with the movie to promote it. It's the least known of my movies, even although it's my most dear one. Also, it opened in Toronto's Film Festival September 9th. And I was on a plane on September 10th, full of happiness and all that, all my movies, and looking at my belly button, all films. And then September 11th came, and it just transformed the world, and including the fact that, you saw how silly it was to be preoccupied about some releases and reviews and when things like that happen. So the movie came out a few months later, and of course, at that time there was no demand for war movies with children dying. It was not exactly what an audience was seeking.
It's interesting because I do feel like it's had a journey of rediscovery a little bit, and you mentioned earlier that there's a new Criterion edition of the film coming.
Yeah, Criterion is putting it out July 30th, and Guillermo Navarro and I, normally I spend 4 or 5 days color correcting for the Blu-ray, and then Guillermo comes in for another 2-3 days, and then we do like one more day. The correction for Devil's Wagon, we took about twice that time. And twice that effort, and we were very, very grateful. So it's the best the movie has ever looked. It's gorgeous looking, and we put some new supplements, new stuff on the Blu-ray. Very, very carefully put together.
Now, I understand that the movie does have a very personal connection, though, to you. Apart from it being a movie that you loved, it was inspired by memories that you've had as a child.
Yeah, but first of all, every time I write a child character, it's me. It doesn't matter if it's the girl in Labyrinth, it's me. Poor girl if she grows to look like this. She'll be a bachelorette. But the fact is, I write also the bad guys. I write everybody trying to understand it, but this kid was very, very close to me. And the bullying, like, for example, in Jesuit school in Mexico, it was like going to prison. It was like, I saw kids stabbed, I saw kids beaten to, like, brutally. I had to get into, I got this fat because I was really, really thin. And in order to win the fist fights, I got fat. And I did win the fist fights. But it was like, one of the kids, one of the bullies said to me, one of the days we were in a second floor, and he said, tomorrow when we come to class, I'm going to throw you over the balcony. And you're going to die, and no one is going to punish me? Because I'll tell them we were playing Said, so tomorrow you better be my fucking slave, or I'll throw you over the balcony. So I did the shit out of him. But he really meant it. He really meant it. I knew it, and the other kids were like, yeah. And I had seen a kid, he had stabbed a kid with a compass twice in the bathroom. So when I see a prison movie, I go, yes, with skull. that and then my uncle, who I was named after, Guillermo, my uncle and I were very good friends. He was the guy that introduced me to occult literature and Eric von Daniken. Very light stuff back then. and Madame Blavatsky, he was giving me these weird books. And I said to him, well, if one of us dies, the one that dies first, he was 35, I was 10. So I was hitting my bed. I said, the one that dies first should come back and tell the other if there is anything. And when he died, I inherited his room at my parents' house. And I was doing my homework one day, and the TV was on and everything, and I started hearing the saddest sigh next to my ear, like really deep and then really freaky. And I started moving around the room trying to find out where it was coming from, and the voice moved with me. And then I put my ear on the pillow and I pushed, and the voice was moving with me. And I finally put my ear against the mattress, and I hear the voice in the mattress. And at that very moment, I recognized the voice as my uncle's. And I put everything together like in 16 frames, and I ran out of the room and never came back. But I realized it was him, it was back, and he was telling me there was something. That's why the ghost is the one who sighs.
That's a really amazing story.
And amongst other things, I mean, the movie is full of little details. Every movie is full of little, because things that only my family knows, and things that my family would kill me for revealing. But,
But the thing that's good is that no one else picks up on those, probably.
No, sometimes not even my family. I go, it's there? No.
Now, were you fascinated with ghost stories? I know, obviously, you love monsters from...
Yeah, I was the strangest little motherfucker. I was like a mini Lovecraft. I was super thin. I've never been able to go back. But I was super thin, pale. I used to button my shirt all the way to the collar. I was preoccupied by sin until I discovered sin, which is pretty fucking good. When I stopped worrying, I said, fuck that. But I really was worried. I was thinking about purgatory. My grandmother explained to me what purgatory was, and I was freaked out. She said, no matter what you do, you're going to go to purgatory. You're going to be the greatest kid. You're going to still spend. I said, how long? I don't know, 100 years. I go, fuck. It was really brutal. And as a kid, I was reading. At age 3 or 4, there is a recording on an open reel cassette player, open reel recorder, where I'm asking a mandrake root for witchcraft for Christmas. But I don't know when it started, but it was very early. And at age 7, I bought my first horror anthology. And we used to go into abandoned houses to explore them. I went through the entire sewer system of Guadalajara, my hometown, with flashlights looking for creatures.
And your parents were where at that point?
My parents, essentially, it was like the barracks. If they saw heads and they counted them and they were fucking breathing, that was okay. That was pretty okay. They didn't care. We had a very big house, huge. I used to run my bicycle in the corridor, in the main corridor. It was that long. And my parents, I used to be able to go for a week or 10 days without seeing anyone. It was truly, truly bizarre.
Well, I think we spoke many moons ago about this, and you told a story about accidentally setting your closet on fire because you were trying to stage an explosion.
Yeah, I had my Planet of the Apes figures. And my father, I said, can I take the walk-in closet in so-and-so room? He said, yeah. What do you want to do? I said, I want to create a city. So I created a city for the apes. I did the models. I had a lamp, sort of like those, like without the Chinese symbol. I put it for the moon, and I painted a sky. All that I have astroturf instead of for the grass, and I used to charge my kid brothers. I would say, you want to watch me play with my toys? 1 peso without effects, 3 pesos with makeup effects. They had explosions. They gave me 5 pesos. And I prepared a big explosion with a big bottle of alcohol. I emptied most of it, made a trail, put the empty bottle of alcohol over there. The apes are moving, the horses are chasing, and then the whole right side of the bus catches fire. I got into a little bit of trouble.
I hope he gave you some sort of standing ovation for that.
Oh, he gave me the 5 pesos. But I used to charge him for him watching me play, and he would say, no. That's not the way the story goes.
So you were directing from the very early
I was
age.
directing, yeah, and I did, my first movie was with those figures. I had a Super 8 camera, and my first movie was between Urko, Cyrus, and Cornelius fighting for Zira. I'm falling from a great height, I'm exploding in a ball of blood. It made no sense, but it had an explosion.
So really Pacific Rim starts to come into the
Yeah,
picture.
but Pacific, the thing with Pacific Rim is that all my childhood, I was, for whatever reason, I don't know how it happened, but in the 60s and 70s in Mexico, a lot of our entertainment was pop Japanese culture. We grew up with the Tsuji 28, we grew up with, I don't know how it's called in America. It was Captain Ultra in Mexico.
Ultraman?
No, Captain Ultra. It was a guy that killed some guys that looked like Martians. Right? And we grew up with Subarayas, Ultraman, Ultra 7, Ultra Q. We grew up with all the Wolf Boy Ken, Astro Boy, Princess Knight, all the Tetsuka animation. And in the cinema, we used to go out to see the Toho animated films, all the kaiju. And I spent a lot of time on my childhood drawing giant robots and designing the interior. And I would put my bedroom, a big kitchen, the reactor. Very important, the kitchen, but more important, the reactor, the pistons. And there would always be 2 features in the giant robot. There would be a cinema and a toilet, which is pretty revealing.
That's just good planning.
It was good planning, and then we loved another series that was called Space Giants, Ambassador Magma, and the fights with the kaiju were fantastic. And there was a cartoon called Golden Bat, where a laughing golden skeleton used to fight kaijus and slice them in half. So all that stuff is beaming up, breathing up.
You probably had a lot of time to reflect on that recently, right?
Yeah, no, but the thing is, then I grew up with the anime. As it became more sophisticated, I grew with it. I was right there on the revival of the big adult anime internationally, in the 80s and 90s. I was right there in the theater when they played Akira. I was in the theater when they played Ghost in the Shell. Followed Mamoru Oshii, followed every anime booming back then. Cowboy Bebop, Trigon, all of that. And I raised my daughters. My wife and I loved Miyazaki earlier than Miyazaki becoming popular. And we raised our daughters with anime, and we still watch anime together. And both my daughters and my wife are in love with robots. They see a robot and it's like a beefcake. If it's danger, they go.
He's a pretty studly guy.
But they like it, and my daughter has a crush on all the Pat Labor robots. It's safe for me as a parent.
How old are your daughters?
16 and 12. So the 16-year-old shows up with a 25-story high rope, and I'm okay.
It might be hard to object at that point.
Huh?
It might be hard to object at that point.
She would be crushed.
It's talking about your daughters. You mentioned them before as a real profound experience, influence on how you create and how you write characters. And I think this might be a good pivot point back into Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, well, first of all, when I was doing Mimic, because in Mexico you grow up, you make movies and you do things because you have friends. You are very, very collegiate, you're really trusting. And when I did Mimic, it was very shocking to realize how political it was, how much you had to be a tough guy, you know? And I thought I had my share of fistfights in my life, but they never combined with art. It was like art was a sacred space where you created and you were protected. In Mexico, like when I went to do Devil's Dragon, I said to Pedro, but it will have final cut. He said, what is final cut? Well, I get to say how the movie is cut. He says, you're the director. Of course you get to say that. And I was very, very moving. But my daughter, Mariana, was born when we were prepping Mimic. And this is not a figure of speech, this is not a false realization. When I would have a fight for Mimic, the foremost thing in my mind is I cannot go back home and tell my daughter to be brave if I don't stand for this. If I don't say, fuck you to the right people. How can I tell her to be brave and say that to the right people if I don't do it? So she made me very brave. She made me a much better person. And she was a baby, but it was enough. And I think I don't think anything in life changes you as much as being a parent. Your entire life changes. And if I had not had my two daughters, I couldn't have written, much less do Pan's Labyrinth, because the girl, Ophelia, is very much based in how much an admiration I have for their character. They come out and they have a personality. The babies were different. They behave differently, and as they've always been very sure. I mean, they are the most amazing people I've ever met. I go to a toy store with them. I come out with a cart full, and they have one toy each. I'm the worst example on earth. And I said, don't you want another one? No, it costs too much money. I'm a miserable fuck. But I admire their spiritual integrity, and I think Pan's was done as a companion piece to Devil's Backbone, because when Devil's Backbone came out and then 9/11 happened, everything I had to say about war and pain and evil changed for me. And all of a sudden, Devil's Backbone was not enough to talk about that for me. And I wanted to make Pan's Labyrinth about, amongst other things, choice and disobedience. And it was very important for me to make a movie in which I showed that you don't need to be empowered to make the right choice, which I have had in my life many, many times, including Mimic, the kidnapping, all that. You can make the wrong choices, and when somebody says to me they're doing something because they don't have a choice, I don't believe it. Unless a meteorite hits you, you have a choice, and it's very easy to comply to peer pressure, social pressure, and not be yourself. And I wanted to tell a story about a kid that is right at that age when the world is telling her she has to be one thing, and she can decide to become that or choose to stay true to what she believes. And I wanted to show her tempted by the pressure of evil, which is the captain, but tempted also, it's not a spoiler. How many of you have not seen it? Oh, one spoiler thing. Okay. There's a different type of choice done at the end when she has to choose at her last resort. And she can make the right or the wrong choice. And I think disobedience is very important also, to not do what is expected from you, from anyone. You were talking about Pacific Rim and Devil's Wagon. For me, my American movies exasperate those that like my Spanish movies. And my Spanish movies exasperate those that like my American movies. And in the meantime, I just do them both with love and adore making them, and try to not think about it, because I want the purity you have when you're a child, when in the morning you're a cowboy, in the afternoon you're a spaceman, at night you're an Indian, and if anyone asks you why, you don't give a fuck. Because you have to. I believe fully that the movies I make, because I make them with absolute love. I'm 48 years old and I have never made a movie for the wrong reasons. Never. I may fuck up, absolutely. But it's not blame me, not circumstances or choice. I only chosen, even mimic. I wanted to make the greatest goddamn giant movie about giant bugs ever made. Failing in the middle for whatever reason, yeah, but it was not choice. And I think it's important that disobedience is not trying to think about what it should be, but enjoying what it is.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you're working with children in lead roles, how do you cast those roles and how do you direct those children?
The first thing I try to do is try to find a child that can look. I'm very, very attentive about how they look at things. Because most of the time you end up, you interview 300 kids, and 290 are kids that were raised by their mothers and fathers to be in a fucking yogurt commercial, so they're super spunky and act. And the worst thing a child can do is act. Okay? And you want to like slice your wrist with a potato peeler. And then you find a kid that just is there in the room, and is looking at things. And I watch how they look at the other actor. I watch how they look, and then if their eyes have that light, that's the first step. The second thing is obviously that I can give them a precise instruction, and they can make it their own. Not obey, but make it their own. And that's very important. And finally, how they move. Because up until Pacific Rim, where I decided I was going to approach the way I choreograph actors and camera a little different. I wanted it to be more loose. Any movie you watch of mine, which exasperated Bob Weinstein and mimicked to no end, everybody moves exactly the way I want it, and the camera moves toward them exactly the way I want it. So a little gesture is choreographed. Anything. The captain taking off his cap, passing his hand over, putting it back. I dictate that gesture. I say, do it exactly like that. No, it was too fast, and the camera was a little too far. And because I wanted to be like balletic, which what it ends up being either, depending on what you think, either boring or hypnotic. It's your choice to describe it either way. I accept it. But the girl or the kids in Devil's Wagon and all that, they move very precisely. To the point where when the Devil's Wagon kid is in the closet looking through the keyhole, my hand is on his neck. I'm hidden under the pajama like a ventriloquist dummy. And I'm looking at the monitor for the camera and I'm moving it.
I would imagine that's a harder thing to do with adult actors.
Yeah, so you need bigger hands. But what you do is then you trust the kid, and the one point I gave to Andres Muschietti when he was doing Mama, I came to him and I said, when you're directing child actors, direct the actor, not the child. I said, don't talk to him like a child, or her like a child. Talk to him or her like an actor. Do not try to sort of talk down to them. Don't try to explain like, are you going to, you're talking to an actor, treat them like adults in that sense. Be completely straight, give instructions with the same sort of solidity and adulthood that you would do with another actor. So you know, look here, this is what's happening, don't condescend. And I think the kids in Mama did an extraordinary job at directing it.
Well, I think we're actually going to take some questions from the audience. If people have questions for Guillermo, please find the gentleman with the microphone on the side of the.
Can you talk about working with Ron Perlman, because you mentioned on 5 films, and if you developed a shorthand now with him? And...
Well, what happens is, after 5 films, you have a super shorthand with everybody, like Guillermo Navarro, and I, we talk about groceries, we talk about whatever, once we're in the set. Before, we worked a lot, colors, textures, what I want in the color palette, blah, blah, blah. But same with Ron Perlman, but with Ron, what is great is he can arrive the day of the shoot, and we're gonna make it happen. For example, in Pacific Rim, he plays Hannibal Chow, and he came in and originally I said, I want you to sound like Burt Lancaster in Elmer Country. Well, what is love? But and he started like that, and we went, not working, is it? And then we started finding the voice of Hannibal, and we finally found it. But very quick, what is great is, directors, a lot of directors are afraid of actors. That's a reality that few people acknowledge or verbal. Because actors are often frustrated in directors. And I think that when you have a shorthand and you love your actors and you have some acting experience and so on and so forth, it's very easy. With Ron, we trust each other. That's the one thing an actor and a director have to have, trust. If you lose that, it's gone. Doesn't matter if it's a small part or a big part, you lose it. And with Ron, look, I've known him now since 1990, so that's 23 years, and we know each other's everything. The worst things you can know about Ron Perlman, I know them. The worst things anyone can know about me, he knows them. Now, we basically are best friends. I would die for Ron. I would take a fucking bullet. And I'm not sure he would. I think that's, you cannot say that in any other way. There's a trust. Ron is an incredible actor and he was loyal enough in Kronos. We ran out of money in Kronos, and I was very naive. I was a Mexican gentleman. I went and I said to him, I give you my word, we will pay you. And his agent and manager said, he said what? and he stayed without any written guarantee that he would get paid half his salary because we ran out of money. And he stayed, and I never forgot it. And for 8 years, I waited for him to be Hellboy. Hellboy could have happened before X-Men, before even the rainy Spider-Man, with another actor. But I didn't want to do it without Ron because I would never do that to Ron because he was born to play Hellboy. So I think that loyalty goes both ways, and I think that I do believe in any business and in life. I do believe that it's much easier to be a good guy, and Ron is such a good guy, and if you can do something for him to be rewarded for that, I do it. I love the guy. I absolutely can tell this. I think you're born with one family, and along the way you make another one. You find a father, you find a mother, you find brothers and sisters, and you end up, if you're lucky, at the end of your life, finding yourself with both families around you when you're broke. And then you go, fuck you, see you later.
For you, what's the most important element in telling a good story?
It changes. I tell you, every movie teaches you something, and you realize everything you do wrong from every movie you do. You go, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. I think the most important, and I'm not saying all my movies have it, so please, I'm talking about what I have learned after 20 years and something, flow, for the story to flow. It doesn't matter how long the movie is. You say, well, if it's 90 minutes, it'll go far faster. No. If it's 2 hours, it's too long. No. It's the flow. If the story flows and keeps you guessing, is the most important thing. You need to always have 2 things. One answer that is urgent after every scene. Oh, what is going to happen to him? Oh, what is going to happen to her? Oh, I wonder what, if you have that, you have a great story, and you tell a great story. The second thing I think you have to have with the flow is that you, every scene creates the next one. Like if this had not happened, this other one wouldn't have happened. And when you're younger, and you can see it in my movies, and by younger I mean 3 years ago, seriously, I'm still thinking of myself as a promising young director. Then I realized, my God, I looked like, I saw a picture of Pacific Rim, I said, oh, now I was looking really old. It was me. The most important one is you make every scene birth the need for the next one. If you do that, that's great. So those are 2 very, very essential things. And the last one, I think, is your personality. Like, even in the most commercial movies I've done, that movie, Hellboy 2, Blade, they wouldn't be the same if I had not made them. They would be very different if another guy had made them. So it's very important that you always do your movie that you're willing to get fucking cirrhosis and die from. Like, if you're not willing to die for the movie you're making, don't fucking make it. No, I'm serious. Pacific Rim, I would get fucking colon cancer and croak. I don't care. And they could say we're up until Hellboy 2 and up until Pans Out in Hellboy, I was still deferring my salary or huge chunks of my salary to pay for things in the movie. I would go, I'll pay for it. My wife would say, again? That's important.
Thank you.
I was wondering what your thoughts are on Godzilla coming out when your film already looks so much better.
I want to see Godzilla. Look, Godzilla, I have a huge kaiju crush on Godzilla. Huge. I mean, in one area of my man cave, I have the 20 by 8 watercolor of Godzilla fighting a squid. I have like 40 Godzillas. I have my radio control for Godzilla just arrived last week. How can you go wrong with Godzilla? And I think he's a very smart director. I think he's very, very smart. I think that a director that has quirkiness and smarts like that in a movie like Monsters is a guy that deserves an opportunity. What I was saying about Almodovar, I mean it. Like, I have produced by now about 8 or more first-time directors, and I intend to continue producing first-time directors for as long as I can, because what Pedro did to me and for me with Devil's Wagon, I will never pay to the universe, And I think that when we see a director as a smart like that, coming from an independent film into a big movie, our hopes are always that he will bring that quirkiness, like Brian Johnson, the looper, like somebody that can grow and be produced properly, because otherwise we would never be able to explore everything we like. I mean, I really think I would have, in my mind, I would have never made big movies in America. It was the debt I acquired with Kronos, and later the kidnapping of my dad, that made me continue working to pay debts to this good. And I realized how beautiful it has happened, because the sides that I was able to explore on Hellboy or on Pacific Rim are as much me as the other movies. And I think we need to always give benefit of the doubt. I think his Godzilla is going to kick ass. And I want to see it destroy many cities and tanks and jet planes in a very different way. I'm very curious about his movie, very much.
Hey, Mr. Del Toro. I'm wondering, what led you to do this film as well as Pan's Labyrinth in Spain as opposed to like Mexico or Central or South America? And also, I'm curious as to when you write, seeing as how the Spanish is different in the Americas as opposed to in Spain, how did you find that in the techniques that you used there?
Yeah, the first one on Devil's Wagon, I just knew the story when I bought the screenplay with the bomb and Hassan Johnson. It was actually, the writers were Spanish and they had set it in Eastern Europe. And they had it in somewhere in Eastern Europe. And I hate those movies. I hate those movies that happen somewhere, because that means they happen nowhere. You know, Hitchcock used to say, if you want to be universal, you have to be specific. Vertigo, San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? And all the Euro crap that gets produced with like actors that were in a TV series in the 80s, all that happens somewhere in America. You know, which is really an European city with a Mustang. You know? and it doesn't look like America. And when we went to do Blade 2, the mandate from the studio was to go to Prague and make it look like Pittsburgh. And I said, that's the most stupid fucking thing you can do. Prague is Prague. He said it in Prague. The last scene on the first one was in Russia. You know? He's looking for Whistler. Blah, 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 and so forth. But to answer your question, the first thing I said is I want to do it in Spain because the Spanish culture that came to Mexico after the Civil War, seeking for exile, they shaped the arts in my country. They were great dramaturgists, they did theater, they did set design, wardrobe design, directors, actors. Some of the best actors in the golden age of Mexican cinema came from Spain. You know, and I really, I met, one of my mentors was an exile guy. He had come to Mexico when he was 8 years old. And he used to tell me about the Civil War, and I realized how little we knew about the Civil War, my generation, or at least me. And Generalissimo Franco had become a punchline for Chevy Chase, Saturday Night Live, you know? And I was just feeling that anxiety, and I thought, I want to make a war movie where we don't show the war that much, where the war happens inside the house. That was Devil's Wagon. And that's when the Pedro and the other two co-writers helped me a lot with the Spanish from Spain. Because obviously my Mexicanisms would appear, you know. And Pedro came up, Pedro is like this with dialogue. He was, I was saying, how do I say something about her leg having the gold, and it's a hand, and he says, oh, it feels heavier than ever. I go, fuck yeah. Pedro is Pedro because he's a genius, you know. And then on the second one, on Pan's Labyrinth, I contacted a friend of mine, David Trueba, who's Fernando Trueba's brother, and I said, I wrote this screenplay called Pan's Labyrinth, and I would like you to do a pass on my dialogue, because I don't want any Mexicanism. And he read it and he said, there's none. So I didn't need help on that one, I guess. But that's, did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank God, because it was 5 minutes.
Hello. I know that Justice League Dark is in the early development stages. I was wondering if you could talk about that, how it's going, and how you got involved in the project.
Well, one of my most cherished memories when I was a kid was running to the drugstore and the newsstand in my bike to get Swamp Thing, Len Wayne's and Bernie Wright's, and not making it to the house to read it. I would pedal like a block, drop the bike, sit on the pavement and read it. You know, and it's Swampy for me was, I sculpted him in clay, I drew him and drew him and drew him, and Demon, you know, Jack Kirby's Demon, Etrigan, one of my favorites from my childhood. I drew obsessively the shot of Fairly Farfetch when he removes the mask in the face stealer, the face thief, I think it's called in America, and he says, this, and I was in love with Jack Kirby, but I was in love with all the monsters of DC and all the dark stuff from DC. I was never really a superhero guy. I loved Batman and Spider-Man because they were kind of fucked up, but the other guys, I loved a very obscure superhero called Earth. Nobody has ever heard of him. I loved him. I made a suit. I made many suits. As a kid, and my brother always beat the shit out of me. I would come out and say, now try to beat them. but Justice League comes from, I love that. When I heard they wanted to do that, I went and pitched it. I said, look, I want to do it. Constantine is one of my favorite characters. When he was introduced in Swamp Thing by Alan Moore with the swordfish and that little scene, it blew my mind. The retelling of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore completely changed something that I already thought was perfect and had been languishing since Lin Wayne and Bernie had left. The series went really bad. I think the issue after they left, he was fighting mechanical dogs already. And I really thought I could come in and try to do some of the hallucinogenic stuff that Swampy did on the Alan Moore stuff, and do some of the darker stuff, edgier stuff that Constantine had in the comics that is not just hip and fun, but that is really, really based on lore. I mean, I collect books, and one of my big collections is occult, and I have many, many really, really 18th century manuscripts of occult and grimoires, and I have a book that has a demon in it, supposedly. It's been prepared, and if I open it and recite what is there, a demon will come. I paid a fortune, so I don't want to find out either that there are demons or that I am a fucking moron. That would destroy my world. So I haven't opened it and I haven't tried. But all the real occult, super, very well thought out stuff that Constantine had, I want to sort of articulate it in a proper way. The real heavy mythology, stuff like that. And if it happens like that, great. If they read my draft and say fuck this, I don't do it. Because I think it's life is too short to make movies you don't really believe in. You need to love them. Did that answer that?
Yes.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of who's in there,
Yeah.
Because that is cool, right? Now, just ranking about fun. So we have Constantine, we have Swamp Thing, we have Etrian, Zidana, we have Deadman, which is vital for me. And the other characters that I want the Floronic Man. I'm trying very hard to have him there because I love him. And there's a couple of characters that would be spoilers if I told you that they're there. But we're trying to put everybody that doesn't feel like a repeat. Deadman I love. I adore Deadman. So that made it news, or you haven't heard it? It's news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liz Liu, and hopefully someday I dream of working with you. But today I have a question.
Some people dream of not working with me anymore.
I really loved you to talk about the recent news of your adaptation of Monster and how you got involved in that.
Well, Monster is something that Don Murphy, Susan Montfort, and myself have been pursuing for about 5 years. And we went, I had pursued another property in Japan, Domu, by Kazushiro Otomo. I met Otomo's hand. I was very respectful. I pitched it, and then when the deal making happened, it was so awkward because the American lawyers don't understand respect. They don't understand the proper distance that you have to have with a creator of that caliber, and it went south. we stay friends, Otto and I, and that's a big blessing for me because I'm a huge fan. But with Urasawa, I knew I needed to, I heard it was acquired to make it into a feature, and I said, that's horrible. You cannot compress Monster into a feature. So I watched very vigilantly until the feature expired, and I went to talk, we started dialogue with Urasawa, and said we want to make it into a cable series, but properly, the book, not spin-offs. It's not going to go for 5 more seasons than it needs to. It's going to be the books. And he asked out of respect that I would show him the entire first season in writing, the chapters, how they would be, so I would come in. And, you know, that's a big commitment in writing, but I did it. And I sent it to him. I said, this would be the first season. And you can see how respectful it is. Monster is so amazing. The writing, 21st Century Boys, Master Keaton, or whatever you read of Kurosawa is amazing. I mean, he is a truly, truly gifted writer. And Monster is almost like Chekhovian, you know? Has all these little characters that are incredibly smart and delineated, and each of them has an arc. And if you follow all of them, at the end of the last book, you will be satisfied how each character ends. So it's an amazing saga. We have the feature, the pilot script. It's fantastic. We submitted it last week on Friday to HBO, so they're reading. I don't know what's going to happen, if they want to do it or not, but it was done very, very respectfully. When I go to Japan to present Pacific Rim, it's my hope that I will meet with Urasawa-san and I will bow like a monk, because he is a genius.
Good evening, Mr. Otoro. Will, man, I just gotta say I'm a big fan of your work. Got a lot of praise, and thanks for kind of sharing your background tonight. You know, for what I see in the characters and things. Now, you always seem to capture a wonder and a dread when it comes to children, and just for us too as well. That's what I feel when I see your movies. You got so much on your plate. How do you decide your next project?
Well, I wish I could. I mean, people think that I have a chaise lounge where I lie with somebody feeding me grapes. and I'm in golden underwear and I point that one. I mean, I am hustling and bustling and pushing and trying, and I try not to do, you know, if they say we'll do this movie, but we got to do it wrong, I have to say no. You know, I have found in my life that saying no to doing a movie the wrong way is better than agreeing with anything. That making movies is like that having, you know, now you know, if it feels wrong, it's wrong. You know, it's like that. You feel that you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. Period. No matter what. You're gonna get fired, good. Get fired. Fuck it. You know, you're not gonna finish, don't fucking finish. Get out. You know, and I think that's how it's decided, by pure fucking chance. Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe, or he plays dice with my fucking career. John Lennon said life is what happens when you're making other plans, right? That's what has been for me. My first movie would have been Devil's Backbone. My third movie would have been Devil's Backbone. I wrote List of Seven, co-wrote Monte Cristo, developed List of Seven, Mephisto's Bridge. I have written or co-written 22 screenplays. I've made 8 movies. So there are 14 screenplays, and those of you that have written a screenplay know what that translates in terms of time, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears. I have done 14 full scripts that have gone nowhere. So I don't decide. I decide when the juncture happens and the money is there, if I go that way or I don't go that way. But that's the only power of decision I have. Did that answer your question? And by the way, it doesn't get much easier. You know, like Mountains of Madness 2 years ago collapsed. 3 years ago. Feels like 2. 3 years ago, it collapsed. And I had Jim Cameron producing with Don Murphy, Susan and I, Tom Cruise starring, and I thought, well, it's going to happen. It doesn't happen. So, you know, it's sad. Sometimes as a fan, you watch a director and you go, why did he do that? Why didn't he do this other thing? Oh, this point. I'm going to tell him. And in reality is very different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Hey, Guillermo. Thanks for coming out tonight and doing this for us. This is absolutely brilliant. I've always wanted to dreamt about floating an idea by you. And as a Miyazaki fan, would you ever be open to doing something like a live adaptation of Spirited Away? Because your gift for makeup, practical effects, and puppetry would make something like that freaking amazing.
But I think if something is already perfect, why fuck with it? You know what I mean? Like it's already, you know, I think that Miyazaki, when I was a kid and I went to see Toho's Puss in Boots, you know, and I saw the scene of the ogre chasing Puss and the castle crumbling around him, right? It stayed in my mind as a kid. And then years later, I was watching Lupin the Third, and I saw Lupin running in Cagliostro's castle as it crumbled, and I said, that's the same fucking animators. That's the same goddamn sense of timing. And I rewound and I went to look for Puss in Boots, and sure enough, Takahata and Miyazaki were there. This, you're talking about why don't we adapt something written by Bach or Mozart in a fucking xylophone, you know? Because you don't. You know what I'm saying? I think that those guys are masters. Miyazaki is, in my opinion, a god in the pantheon of cinema. So I don't think you do things when you say, I can do it differently, and I can do it like the only remake in my entire life I dreamt as a kid was Don't Be Afraid of the Dark as a kid, but I wanted to direct it. I did it, I produced it, you know? But I wanted to make a movie for kids that screw their brain. Like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark screwed my brain as a kid. And sadly, the movie was given an R rating. It didn't deserve it, I think, but it got an R rating, so the only thing that happened is adult fans went and said, that's a hard fuck that, you know? But the idea was to create that. I think that is very hard to remake if you don't want to make it better. Not just equal, but better. But we love Miyazaki the same.
Thank you.
And in my man cave, I have a huge Miyazaki altar. Where I pour sake and I light candles. If you guys want to visit your kids, if you watch the Chronos DVD and you freeze frame it, is the one that is on the right to Samael from Elwood. It's a big cabinet, and there's a cup of sake, and I light it, and when it gets congealed, I scoop it out and pour it in a meal. But I think he did this for me across the country.
Hello. Well, thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
My question is, and I know there's 2 people in the audience who haven't seen the movie yet, so this is going to be a very general question. But from your perspective, for Ophelia, was everything reality or just a figment of a childhood imagination to escape?
Okay, the 4 that haven't seen it, you have cover your ears or whatever. But to me, there is no difference. To me, what you believe in is real. I mean, I know this sounds like I'm bathed in patchouli and smoke a joint. To me, I think that what you believe in firmly is reality, not what is outside of your skin, you know? So spiritual reality for me is as strong as material reality, you know? I can tell you, you can live in the worst circumstances and be happy. And you can be a billionaire with a jet in the runway, a yacht in the dock, marble floors, and be an unhappy motherfucker. You know? So I believe in that. I believe that you can catch yourself unhappy or happy in the same circumstance. It's a choice. And I think there's a saying by Kierkegaard that says the kingdom of the despot ends with his death. The kingdom of the martyr starts with his death. And I think it's very important to know that the notions of power in Pan's Labyrinth are very, very different from the adults to the kid. It's like Kronos. If you saw Kronos, the only immortal character in the movie is the one that doesn't care about immortality. The guys that are chasing it and wanting it out, they are not immortal. She, the girl, who doesn't care about dying, living, time, she is really immortal. And also, I think the most powerful character is Ophelia, because she doesn't care about power. You know, and the answer for me materially still is, it was all real to me. But the adults cannot see it. You know, but that's me. Now, you don't have to see it like that. You can say he's full of shit. Absolutely. Because the movie, once it comes out, is yours. So whatever you make of it, is good. Now, people ask me that, I say, me as an audience member, is real. You know, because of that's why I did the flower. The flower is, that's it. And it's because all of us, all we do is live a little tiny trace of who we are. Look, everybody in this theater, everybody, me, you, everybody that has been in the entire festival, everybody that is making movies today, arguably, 100 years from now, very few people will give a fuck. 300 years from now, even less. 500 years from now, I can almost imagine no one will give a fuck about the good movies or the bad movies, the terrible ones. Now, if you keep going geologically, 1 million years, no one. No one. The worst guy, the destroyed villages, the saint, no one cares. So all we can do is leave a little tiny trace of who we are for those that look for it, or the paleontologists of the future, whoever they are, whatever they're doing. And I think that's what my movies are. They're only there for those that give a fuck and want to look. It's not there to shatter the world or, oh my God, he's a force of nature. Fuck that. They're there, you want to look. There's a lot of stuff I put in there. And I feel Ophelia was like that. Ophelia is a character that makes one difference. If you hear the story, the legend, and she made a difference. I think that she made a difference for the child. She made a difference for the tree. She made a difference for this and that and that. And those are the changes we can affect in our life. We grow and we leave only those little traces. So that's what Pans is about. Is we can change the world in that way if we choose the right things to do. You know? So that's the story. Did that answer your question, or was it too fucking...
I think that's a great point to end on and to watch Pan's Labyrinth.
So please enjoy, and I won't see you after because I'm going to a party.